Raise your hand if you ever cried at night because you were so frustrated with your life just to wake up the next morning and do nothing that you said you were going to do that night. Raise your hand if you thought you would have accomplished more at this age. Raise your hand if you are tired of getting in your own way. And raise your hand if this is all because of self sabotage. You know the things that you should do, you know the places that you should go, you know the food that you should eat. But for some reason, every time your life seems like it's on track, you seem to do something to get yourself off track. So, in this video, we are going to talk about that. I'm going to break down self sabotage for you so you can understand how it works. Of course, I'm going to give you guys psychology based studies to prove it to you, but then also I'm going to, of course, help you stop self sabotaging so you can ultimately reach your goals and become the woman and the person that we both know that you can be. The first one is the fear of responsibility. So many individuals self sabotage because you subconsciously don't think that you are enough of a person to maintain and sustain the habits that are required for you to keep your goals. Because I want you to think about this. When you are going to the gym in the morning, it's a lot easier when you don't want to wake up, but you're telling yourself, girl, you got to get your body together. You're about to go on that trip. When you are a little bit hungry and you're passing by McDonald's, it's a lot easier to tell yourself, we don't need to be eating no fried food. We don't need to be eating no fast food because we have a trip going on, right? Now, I want you to imagine there is no trip. I want you to imagine there is no birthday. I want you to imagine there is no specific goal that you are trying to reach because you've already reached that goal and now it's only required of you to sustain, for you to keep going. It's easy to go to the gym for a week or two when you're looking forward to something, but what if you are just trying to sustain something? Do you think you can still do it? And so I think a lot of individuals don't understand. You self-sabotage because you have a fear around not being responsible enough, sometimes not being enough to essentially maintain the goals that you have for yourself. And so that fear of not being enough causes you to do certain things to make sure you never actually reach that goal, because I want a lot of people to understand you have even a greater fear of potentially getting to where you want to be in life and losing it. See, that's what you're so afraid of. You're afraid of possibly getting the body. You're afraid of possibly starting the business. You're afraid of potentially actually reaching that goal and losing it. That's where the fear derives from. A lot of times we think the fear derives from, oh, well, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Well, I don't know if, I have the money to make that move. And I don't know if I have the time to start going to the gym. We think those are the fears. No, the fear is actually you making the move, you getting the body, you starting the business, and you losing it. You're so afraid of losing your dream life that you rather not do the necessary steps to get there so you can always have a dream life to look forward to. You self-sabotage that. And so there is a book called The Big Leap by a psychologist by the name of Gay Hendricks. And inside the book, he interviews and talks to many people across different kinds of landscapes and careers. And he's talked to some actors or studied some actors who, after winning awards, right? These are what a lot of times actors do this for, like, of course, to be on TV, but like to get an award, to finally get acknowledged for the work that you put in for years, relapse after. He's interviewed, entrepreneurs who had big deals, and all of a sudden after the deal, they do something that either messes up the deal or it ultimately messes up their finances. Why is that? Because there's a certain fear that happens for a lot of people that's like, oh my gosh, I got the award. I've been doing everything possible to get the award. What's the next thing after this? What if I can't get another award? What if I can't, sustain this award? What if after this, I'm going to do things and people are going to think I don't deserve this award? The same thing happened with business owner. I've been going hard for this business. I've been doing everything to get to this business. And what if I do the deal and then it falls through? Or what if I make all this money and then I don't know how to keep it up? And so they self-sabotage because the fear of losing potentially what they could have had makes them feel like I'm that much more scared, if that makes any sense. Like they're so afraid of finally getting that thing. It's so crazy to think about, but so many of us have this dream life for ourselves. And even though we've never gotten to it yet, our brain is so afraid to lose it. It's so afraid to lose it that it makes sure that we literally don't get it. And so that's one thing that I want a lot of people to understand. You might have a fear of responsibility. You might have a fear that you are not enough of a woman. You are not enough of a person to keep doing the habits. You think, well, I can only do the habits when I'm trying to get a body. I can only do the habits when I'm trying to, start the business. I can only do the habits when I'm trying to move out of my mom's house. But I don't know if I can continue to do these habits once I finally reach my goal, because how am I going to continue when I no longer have a goal? And so that's one of the first things that gets people, the fear of responsibility. You are fearful of being responsible for your dream life. The next one is the fear of losing your potential. And this kind of does go off of the last one, but I would say this one is just a little bit more neurological. And the last one is the fear of responsibility, right? So it's the idea that I can get to the goal. I think I actually can. Like, I think if I follow the action steps, I can lose the weight, I can start the business, I can do the things, but I'm just fearful that I won't be able to maintain it, right? I'm just fearful that the responsibility of having to do that thing consistently is just something I'm not enough to do. The fear of potential actually is for individuals who have a fear of saying, I don't have a fear of responsibility. I think I can be responsible enough to do the action steps, to wake up in the morning, to go to the gym, to start the business. I'm more fearful that actually doing these things will confirm to me my deepest, darkest fear that I'm not even enough to get to my goals. There's one group of individuals that say, I'm enough to get to my goals. There's another individual that says, I'm afraid that the dream life I've imagined for myself has always been a dream. The dream bank account, the dream body, the dream business. I'm so afraid that if I actually do the action steps that people say to do, I'm literally not enough to get there. There's something about me that's off. There's something about me that can't do this thing, because we subconsciously also think, because if there wasn't something wrong with me, right? If I was enough to actually get to this goal, why haven't I done it yet? And so you have to sometimes ask yourself, have you subconsciously made up issues about yourself that aren't necessarily there? And are you having these issues in your head about yourself simply because you're afraid that this may confirm the fact that if you tell yourself you actually don't have any issues, you actually don't have anything wrong with you, you're actually capable enough to get to your dream life, this may confirm to you that you're not enough to actually get to that dream. And so you have a fear of losing your potential, because as long as you have potential, right? You keep telling yourself, I have potential to do this. I just got to put in the work. I got potential to do that. I just got to put in the work. You're afraid that you have nothing to look forward to. You're so afraid of losing your potential. You're so afraid of not having a dream life to look forward to. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about enough, and really asking themselves, like, did I make up these? And I don't want to necessarily say make up, because they seem honestly real, but do I tell myself that there's something wrong with me? And I don't even know what it is, but there has to be something wrong with me, because if there wasn't something wrong with me, wouldn't I have already reached these goals? And so until I find that thing that's wrong with me, I'm not going to be able to get to my goals. And so I want to give you guys a case study that hopefully helps explain this just a little bit more. This study was done by two psychologists, Berglis and Jones, and this is called the self-handicapping study. So they got a group of college students and they broke them up into two groups, Group A and Group B. So Group A, which was called Contingent Success Group, they were given solvable word puzzles. Their high score felt earned because the task was actually possible. Group B, which was called the non contingent success group, were given impossible puzzles, but they were told they scored high anyway, even though they knew that they guessed on most of the answers. The subtle difference mattered. Group A believed their success reflected their abilities, while Group B felt like their success was just random, luck, and unearned. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Students were told, next, you will take a similar test, but before you start, you can take one of two drugs. One was a performance enhancing drug to make them do better. One was a performance impairing drug to make them do worse. In reality, the drugs really didn't exist. They were just decoys to measure self sabotage. What were the results? 70% of Group B, the non contingent success group, chose the performance impairing drug. Only 13% of Group A chose that one. This is important because the students who felt their success wasn't earned were more likely to create a built in excuse for possible failure on the next test. If they did poorly, they could blame the drug instead of their ability. They weren't trying to fail, they were trying to protect their self image. Now, I want to explain this a little bit further. So, essentially, we're going to focus on group B. That was the group of individuals that were given a puzzle that was literally impossible, and they were told that you passed. You finished the puzzle. Now, they knew, I guess, though, most of that. They didn't know it was impossible. For the next task, they were given two options. You were either able to take, and these were, of course, placebos, they weren't real, but a drug that will make you do better on the next test, or a drug that will make you do worse on the next test. Impair your judgment. Why would they statistically more, about 70% more, take the drug that will make them be impaired? Because they were afraid of losing that little bit of potential that they already had. They were so afraid of, what if I take the drug that was supposed to make me do better, but then I actually did worse? They felt like the life that they had for themselves, they did not earn that. They felt like they just fell into it. And so I want you to think about that with yourself. When you sometimes tell yourself there must be something wrong with me, what you are subconsciously doing is taking that impairment drug every single day. Because every single time you go to the gym and you don't get the body, every single time you try to start the business and it doesn't work well, you can always tell yourself, well, the reason why it didn't work is because this thing. And a lot of times that thing is quote unquote unknown. You don't know what it is. You don't know how to stop it. You don't know, because if you did, you would stop it, right? That thing is self-sabotage. You're afraid, very similar to those students, of losing their potential. They're so afraid of losing that self-image, of taking the next test, having something that was supposed to make them do better, but then they didn't do better, because then it's like, well, there really must be something wrong with me. So you're so afraid because you made up in your head a lot of times that there's something wrong with you, and that's why you haven't reached your potential. But if you just figure out that thing, you will get to your potential. It's you. It's crazy to think about, and I hope that case study was able to explain it enough. But it's you. You have the option every single day to do the necessary steps to put your life forward, and every single day you choose the necessary steps that push your life back or keep you the same. Why? It is not because there's something wrong with you. It is not because of your upbringing. It's not because of your lack of knowledge. It is because you are so afraid of losing that potential. You're so afraid that even if you do those necessary steps, i.e., even if you take that performance enhancing drug, you still won't be enough. You still won't pass that test. And so you allow yourself to receive the bare minimum. You allow yourself to be okay with the life that you have now, because you're like, I'm just lucky to be here. I'm just happy to be here. You don't even kind of climb the ladder to get to more. You don't even climb the ladder to possibly see more and possibly be more, because you're kind of like, well, what if I climb this ladder and there's nothing up there? Other people, they don't have these issues like me. They don't have these problems like me. They wouldn't understand. That is your brain protecting you. That is your brain allowing you to have a future. That is a brain allowing you to hold on to some unknown potential. But I want you to also understand that is your brain keeping you stuck. That is your brain allowing you to say, one day I'll have this thing. If I just keep being a good person, if I just keep putting in the work, one day, one day, one day. Because your brain is so afraid of saying today. Today we gonna do it. Today we gonna start. Today we gonna, well, what, next week, next year, next Monday, next month. That's what your brain allows you to look forward to so it can keep you feeling safe. The next one is the fear of the death of your ego. Essentially, imposter syndrome. So, I've explained the ego before in other videos. Your ego is essentially the perception that you think people have of you, like who you think people think that you are. And a lot of us try to maintain this ego, and we do actions to maintain that people think usually highly of us, or they think of us how we assume they think of us, if that makes any sense. So there are some individuals that are business owners, and you may not want to be a business owner no more. You might be struggling, but you refuse to get a 9 to 5. Why? Because you're kind of like, well, everybody thinks I'm a business owner and everybody thinks I'm great. There's some individuals that are trying to go for college degrees that they truly don't want. Why are you keep trying to go for that college degree? Because this will make my family proud, and if I don't do this thing, my family won't be proud of me. I want you to understand this causes something called imposter syndrome. And this, a lot of times, is what leads to self sabotage. You self sabotage yourself on a consistent basis because you feel like you, going back to sometimes the students that we used in the previous study, you did not earn the right to be where you are. You feel like a lot of times it was luck or sometimes it just happened. And I want you to understand, first and foremost, that you don't have to deserve anything. That is one of the first things I want a lot of people to really ask themselves. If you were to receive your dream life tomorrow, you had the dream bank account, you had the dream car, you lived in the dream house. If you were to wake up to all that tomorrow, would you think that you deserved it? I want you to really ask yourself. Now, I want you to ask yourself, if you would not think that you woke up tomorrow and you deserved it, what do you think that you would have to do to deserve that thing? There are so many people who literally work for where they are in life, whether they have the degree, whether they have the job, whether they have the business. There's so many different things. And the reason why they self sabotage is because they're so afraid of people finding out that they didn't do enough. You're so afraid of the wool being pulled over people's eyes, and one day they're going to find out I'm an imposter, and one day they're going to find out that I'm not supposed to be here. And so a lot of individuals self sabotage because you feel like you don't deserve where you are in life. You feel like you didn't work enough. You feel like you didn't do enough. You feel like you aren't enough. And so you self sabotage yourself to make sure that you don't get to higher heights. You self sabotage yourself essentially to make sure that nobody ever says, hey, you're too successful. Hey, you're too pretty. Hey, you're too skinny. Hey, you're too this. Hey, your body looks too good. You do things. So individuals never question you because you feel like if individuals question you, you won't be able to rebuttal back. You feel like you're going to be like, oh, I don't know. How did you do that? I don't know. And then you feel like even if you do tell people how you got to where you are, they're going to say, that's it. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. You feel like you essentially skip steps in life. And so I want to give you guys a case study that illustrates this very, very well and shows you how imposter syndrome literally causes you to not reach your goals, but also even if you are enough to get into the door and essentially in life, you literally walk back out. Psychologist Elizabeth Canning and her colleagues carried out a study from 2018 to 2019. They had a sample size of 818 freshman and sophomore STEM students at one of the most prestigious U.S. universities. They had these students fill out an initial survey where they asked them about their first generation status and how competitive their classes feel. For the next couple weeks, after every class they took, they were sent text messages with questions. The final report came out in January 2020. Even though these students were bright enough to make it into a good STEM program at one of the top universities, their first generation status and the pressure of a competitive class made them feel like they didn't belong. It showed first generation students in competitive STEM classes reported significantly higher imposter syndrome, leading to lower attendance, reduced engagement, poorer grades, more thoughts of dropping out, and ultimately dropping out. Now, I want to talk about this study a little bit more. So, this study was conducted using individuals who were first generation, who come from underprivileged backgrounds, but also individuals who were not first generation college students and also came from privileged backgrounds. Out of these 818 students, they found, statistically speaking, individuals who were first generation, came from lower backgrounds, were more likely to stop attending class or have lower attendance rates, ultimately end up switching their majors, sometimes even dropping out or having thoughts of dropping out. Why is that? Because they were experiencing imposter syndrome. They felt like one day people are going to find out that I don't deserve to be here. And so instead of doing the necessary steps that they were qualified to do, because if you think about it, they still made it into this program at one of the most prestigious universities in America. So it wasn't a matter of them not being enough intellectually or compared to their counterparts who, came from different kind of backgrounds. It was a mental thing that messed them up. It was a mental thing that caused them to go to class less. It was a mental thing that caused them to flunk out of a lot of their classes. It was a mental thing that caused some of these people to drop out. Them feeling like, what if I make it? What if I do get the degree? What if I do? And then what if I'm applying for the jobs and they find out where I'm really from? Or they found out I'm a first generation student? What if my professors find out that I'm really not supposed to be here? But going back to what I asked you before, when I asked you to ask yourself, what do you think you would have to do if you woke up tomorrow and got your dream life to deserve that? A lot of times, you can't come up with that answer because your brain never thought of that answer. Your brain never thought that you would be enough to get to your dream life. Your brain always felt like you would be an imposter. Your brain subconsciously never felt like it can literally get to some of those goals. And so, first and foremost, I want you to understand experiencing imposter syndrome is normal. The problem comes when you start self-sabotaging. You start doing things that get you away from feeling like an imposter. You start doing things that bring you back to the neighborhood you're used to, bring you back to the finances you're used to, bring you back to the body that you're used to. A lot of times it's because of other individuals. It's our ego. Going back to what I said, we want to stay in the box of how we think people perceive us because we don't want people to find out that we're fake. We don't essentially want to be caught for something that we're not. So we self sabotage. These students were qualified to make it into this school. There was nothing that they could have done that could have made them felt like they earned it more. There's nothing that you could have done to make you feel like you deserve that thing more. If you've received anything in your life, you deserve that thing simply because you got it, simply because of who you are. Stop feeling like, oh my gosh, I have imposter syndrome. I shouldn't be here. Oh my gosh, I have imposter syndrome. They're going to find out. People experience imposter syndrome all the time. Anytime you start something new, I want you to understand you're going to feel like an imposter. When you went from the fifth grade to the sixth grade, when you went from elementary school to middle school, you felt like an imposter. But then over time, you got used to it and then you outgrew that. When you first got to high school seemed so daunting, so scary, right? When you're in elementary school, you look at high schoolers like these big, oh my gosh, giants. I'm 25 years old. I look at high schoolers like kids. But I remember there was a point in time where I was walking into high school for the first time and I felt like an imposter. Being a freshman, you 13, you 14 years old, you feel like an imposter. Oh my gosh, I'm here with these 18-year-olds, these 17-year-olds, these big kids. And then over time, not only do you become them, but you get to know them. You like, oh, they're just like me. Some individuals don't allow themselves to get to that point, to see they're just like me, to see that I deserve to be here, simply because you have a fear of imposter syndrome. You have a fear of that ego. You're so fearful of what will individuals say about me? What will individuals think about me when they find out I'm not supposed to be here? And so you do things to make sure people never find out that you're not supposed to be there. They never find out you're not supposed to make that kind of money. You're not supposed to have that kind of body. You're not supposed to live where you live. And so you do things to make sure nobody ever questions why you, because you truly in your heart of hearts don't even know why me? Why do I deserve this thing? And so you self sabotage so you never have to answer that question to yourself or to anyone else. Now, the next one is you possibly have a shadow problem. So, if you're into psychology and things like that, you've probably heard of your shadow self before, right? Usually, people describe it as being the other side of yourself, the bad side of yourself, the bad habits, all these other things. And you have to focus on doing shadow work to essentially get out of these bad habits and these things holding you down. Well, I kind of want to change your mental visualization of this. And instead of thinking it as a figure, think of it as a place. So essentially there's things that you want to do in life, right? Goals that you have for yourself and, desires that you have. And we would call that more so what you consciously think about, right? It's at the forefront. I want to do this thing. I think about this thing. I dream about this thing. I desire this thing. That is essentially what we're going to call your conscious. Well, that is what your conscious is. When we are thinking about your shadow, that is where your conscious does not go. Those are the things that you don't think about. Those are the things that you don't talk about. And that is why I think of it more so as a shadow, because that's where your conscious essentially does not shine light. Now, if you think about the desires that you have for yourself, are a lot of times the opposite of possibly how you're living now, possibly where you live, where you work, so many things like that. Your conscious does not want to be there, but I want you to understand that is probably where your shadow feels most comfortable, and that is where your shadow will not let you leave. And this is because your shadow is still a piece of you. It is still your shadow. And so your shadow thinks if you achieve those desires, right? Those things that you think about and you want for yourself, it feels like if you achieve those things, you won't need me anymore. If you achieve those things, you're going to essentially get rid of me. And so your shadow side of you rebels. It literally causes you to self-sabotage so you do not reach your goals, because it feels like, first and foremost, you try to not even think about me. You don't even consciously think about me. You push it to the back of your mind, because when we think of our shadow selves, we think of the bad habits. But then also it kind of thinks, well, even if you do achieve these things, you might get rid of me. And I want you to understand, you have to learn how to integrate your shadow self into your life, because your shadow self is you, and your shadow self is not necessarily always bad. A lot of times people will be surprised to find out your shadow self is probably the things that you were probably shamed for. It was the things that you were probably talked about for, and it was you kind of navigating life, realizing, hey, when I talk a lot, people, complain and they bully me. When I show this emotion, people don't want to be around me. So over time, you started to suppress that thing, and that has become your shadow. You don't think about that thing. You don't talk about that thing, even though that is a piece of you. And let me give you an example so hopefully it makes sense. For me, my shadow was speaking and talking about like anything intellectually stimulating, right? For a very long period of my life, I didn't do it, because first and foremost, when I was a kid, I often got on my progress report, my report card, she talks too much. And then as I got older, people just would say little things like, Shamaya's always in people business, and she knows this about this celebrity, and she knows that. And I kind of felt like I was a bit shamed for it. And so over time, I started to suppress that side of me. I started to kind of feel like, okay, I'm not going to show it. I'm not going to talk a lot about through certain things. And I didn't realize that that was actually causing me to self-sabotage, because essentially I was trying to repress a piece of me that was still me. And it was kind of like me not fully showing up as who I was. And it wasn't until honestly I kind of started this channel that I noticed that in other areas of my life I did not self-sabotage. And I felt like it was because I was able to integrate that piece of me that was inside of my life, that piece of me that sometimes I was possibly shamed for or talked about for. And so with this channel, I'm able to do that. I'm able to have these intellectual, even though it's not a back and forth, but kind of conversations. I'm able to talk literally for hours on end, on a weekly basis. And so it allows me to exercise that shadow aspect of me and my shadow self. And another example of this can be, so I was recently talking to my therapist, right? There's this artist, I don't know if you've heard of her. She creates like country music. Her name is Jessie Murph. And she has this song, and in the song, she says something like, I'm from Alabama. I'm not going to sing it because I'm not the best singer, but she's like, I'm from Alabama. I'm about 4'11". I got a shitty father and I like to go to heaven. Disclaimer, I like country music. Anyways, well, that's one of the genres I like. Anyways, and I really like that song because I really be feeling that. Like, I really got a shitty father and I really want to go to heaven. Like, and so I would listen to that song often, and other songs by her when I would leave work. And I was talking to my therapist and I was like, I just feel like I'm too comfortable with sadness. And my therapist was kind of like, well, what's wrong with that? And I'm like, well, I shouldn't, like, that's not something I should feel comfortable with. And she was just saying how growing up, she would, and people like her generation, we would listen to like Eminem. And he kind of was like that for us, because he was just talking about things with his mom and things that he was going through. Disclaimer, I don't like self-deprecating music. No shade if you like him. I don't like Rod Wave type. I feel like he's very self-deprecating. I don't like self-deprecating, but sometimes I do like sad music. Like, I don't know, it's more comfortable for me. And I say all that to say, she was helping me understand that was a piece of my shadow self. I was telling myself, because society tells us we're always supposed to be happy and we're all supposed to be this. And so that was a piece of me that I was repressing. Like, sometimes I really like listening to sad music. And sometimes that's just me. Sometimes I'm just more comfortable with that. I don't know how to describe it, but like that sadness, but it's nothing wrong with that. But so many people run away from that piece of them because they're kind of like, oh, well, society tells us we're always supposed to be happy, and sad music is only supposed to be, when something is going on. We should be listening to happy, get money, whatever type music. And so I want you to understand those pieces of you that you feel like either society will not accept or you've been condemned for, you have to learn how to integrate those things into your life so your shadow self understands, hey, you can come along with me. There doesn't have to be a separation. When I make these millions, when I get that house, when I get that body, I'm still going to take you. Because a lot of times that's our younger self. That's our child self. Like, I'm still going to take you with me. I'm not going to cut you off. And so I want you to think about that. Like, what aspects of you are your shadow self, and what is your shadow? Like, what is in your shadow that you've been repressing, that you've been hiding? And what habits are necessary for you to start integrating that in your life? Now, if it's causing you to do bad habits that are leading to bad things, that's completely different. But even me, like, listening to kind of like that saddest music, it didn't do anything for me. Like, it wasn't like, oh yeah, I need to get drunk tonight and not think about my life, or I need to do something bad. No, I just like listening to this when I come home from work. It just makes me comfortable. Like, I'm not gonna cuss again because I want this video to not get taken down, but I don't have the best father. And I want to go to, like, I don't know, it was just that. But that's something that I want a lot of people to think about too. Like, are you self-sabotaging because you're trying to cut off your shadow self and you're not trying to think about your shadow self? Because I want you to understand your shadow self is always going to be there. And if that feels like, that aspect of you feels like you're trying to get rid of it, and once you get to your dreams and your desires, you're going to literally erase it, it's not going to allow you to get there. Like, it's crazy to think about, but think about it as this: your prior self won't let you get to your future self because it thinks that you're not going to bring it along with it. But if you think about it, you have no choice. You have no choice of, like, all of this is all you. The past, the current, the future, this is all you. You can't just cut one piece off and move this over here and put this arm on this leg. It's all you. So you have to just figure out how to integrate it into your healthy habits that you're trying to do. Those desires and goals and dreams that you want to have, you can still bring those aspects with you. And from doing this work, I understood not only can you, but you have to, or your prior self will never let you get to the goals that you have for yourself. Now, that first section was kind of more so why your brain makes you self-sabotage, right? It kind of has that fear of responsibility. It has that fear of not reaching your potential. And then also it's your shadow. Now, the next two things, which I'm going to run by pretty fast, is how your brain does it. And there's two things it does. It does something called confirmation bias, and it has you use a logical shield of honor. So first and foremost, and this especially when it comes to your shadow, whether you realize it or not, your thoughts become your reality. And this is what you'll call more so confirmation bias. If you are biased to something, your brain will cause you to only see things that confirm that thing. Your brain wants you to be right. Your brain does not want you to be wrong. Your brain doesn't want you to be confused. So it's only going to show you things that confirm that thing. For example, if you've ever gotten something new, let's say, especially something that's like grand and big, let's say you got a new car, or I mean, this has even happened to me before with a birthday dress, right? Something you spend a lot of time, money looking for. You're like, I can't find this thing. I can't find the best car. I can't find the best dress. How many times after do you see people wear that same dress or a similar dress? How many times after do you go everywhere and you see that car and you're like, I've never seen this thing before. Oh my gosh, it feels like everybody has it. That is your brain literally showing you confirmation bias. You were more biased towards that thing because now that you have it and you pursued it and you were thinking about it, that your brain detects it everywhere. It is not that all of a sudden everybody has that dress. It is not all of a sudden everybody bought that car. It is your brain using confirmation bias. So I want you to understand, on a day-to-day basis, if you have a fear of responsibility, if you have a fear of potential, your brain is going to essentially confirm those fears for you, which is going to lead to your self-sabotage. So that is one way it does it. But then, as I said before, the next one, it uses logic of armor. And this is why it's so imperative for you to be so aware of the things that you are consuming, but then also of the things that you tell yourself. Because I want you to understand, going back to what I said before, your brain wants you to think that you're right. It doesn't want you to be confused. And I think sometimes too, people think that, oh, well, if this thing isn't correct, right? If this thing isn't true about me, or if this thing is wrong, then essentially the things that I'm thinking wouldn't make sense. And so your brain kind of thinks that if I'm wrong, right? If I think I can't get a good job, right? Your brain thinks I can't get a good job. It's going to tell you real logical reasons why you can't get a good job. I think so many people think, oh, if it wasn't true that I couldn't get a good job, all this stuff wouldn't make sense. No, your brain is going to tell you things that it knows you are going to believe. If you can't get a good job, your brain is not going to tell you, oh, it's because you don't own a unicorn. Oh, it's because you don't, have magical shoes. No, your brain is going to tell you, oh, I mean, do you see where your mom used to work growing up? Of course you can't get a good job. Oh, do you see, what everybody in your family works? Of course you can't get a good job. It is going to tell you logical things. And this is not me telling you not to trust your brain, but this is also why it's imperative to put information inside of your brain that is logical as well, that makes sense as well, but contradicts the thoughts that you have if the thoughts that you have are not getting you to the life that you want. Stop convincing yourself that it doesn't have to make sense. So many people are like, oh, well, it makes sense. It makes sense why I'm where I'm at in life. It makes sense why I can't lose the weight. It makes sense. Okay, well, you need to bring in other information so a different future, a different body, a different life makes sense as well. And it's so funny because I'm about to say, I hope that made sense. But your brain kind of builds up this logical armor. So you think everything I think, it makes sense. This is true. It's 100% real. And it's like, technically it is because this is all the information that you have. But if you give yourself different kinds of information, you can change a whole new reality, achieve whole new heights, and those things will be real as well. So those are two ways that your brain does it. It has confirmation bias to confirm everything that you previously thought about yourself, the limiting, mindset that you have, the ways you think you can't go, the fears that you have. It only shows you things in life that confirms that. See, that's true. See, that's true. See, that's true. And then also all the things that it tells you and it shows you, it makes sure those are things that you can believe. Now, here are 3 ways we are going to get you to essentially break out of this cycle. So one of them I kind of did mention before I kind of went into it, but we are going to get you to integrate your shadow into your life. So this is going to take, I say it in so many videos, if you don't have one already, then do you not trust me? Get a journal. You need to start journaling on a consistent basis so you can start understanding what are the thoughts that you are having, what are the things that you are suppressing, what are the things that you are going through. Because one of the first steps you have to do is figure out what is your shadow area. What are things that you are suppressing? What are the things that you don't think about? What are the things that you don't allow yourself to do because you think you're going to be laughed at for? People possibly have talked about you doing this thing, or you do this too much, or why you do this, or why you do that. So you started to hide that thing. You have to start figuring out your shadow so you can figure out how you are going to integrate aspects of your shadow into your life. Habits where you can exercise your shadow, still do your shadow, but then also integrate it with the healthy habits that you want to do that are going to get you to essentially the life that you want to live and the woman that you want to be. The next one is you have to find self-worth outside of achievement. I want you to understand you cannot achieve anything that is going to make you feel like you are worthy enough to essentially get the goals that you have. Going back to the individuals who got into STEM programs at the top university or one of the top universities in the United States, still felt like, even with that achievement, even with getting a certain grades and a certain GPA, they still self sabotage because they did not feel like they were enough. But also, what you possibly can do is use achievement to make up for things in other areas. So maybe there is an area in your life where you feel like, dang, I really want to get out of my parents' house. I feel like I'm in my parents' house. I feel like I'm too old. I feel like by this age, I should have achieved this certain thing. There are some individuals that to make up for that feeling of feeling like they're behind in life, they may get a newer car, they may always wear designer. I want you to understand, first and foremost, achieving one thing in one area is not going to make up for another area because a lot of people do that. They don't focus on the real problem. They build literally a force field of achievements of sometimes things around them that they've purchased or they've done to make them feel better about themselves. But then also, I want you to understand none of those things will essentially build up your self worth. You thinking you are enough. And one of the things that I think that will help with your self-worth is finding what makes you different. And this also kind of goes back into talking about the shadow and the shadow work. I struggled with self worth for a very long time. And it wasn't until I really got good at content. I think I said this on my most recent live. And when I say really good at content, it has nothing to do with my followers, it has nothing to do with money I'm making. Essentially, I found out what makes my content different. Like the fact that I wanted to focus on psychology, the fact that I wanted to focus on using case studies and different things like that. This was something that makes sense for me. I already like researching this stuff. I already like looking this stuff up. My brain already works like this and putting analogies and things together. And so when I was able to find out what makes me different, I was able to build up that self worth without having to get a certain amount of followers, without having to get a certain amount of money, essentially knowing that I'm different. Like I'm not better than nobody, I'm not worse than nobody, but there's never going to be another Shemaya. And I've said this, you are as unique as your fingerprint. There's nobody, even twins do not have the same fingerprint. And until you figure that out, you are always going to compare yourself to everyone else. And this is why integrating your shadow into your life is important as well. Until you could figure out what makes me different, you're always going to compare yourself to everybody else. So you're always going to feel like you have to get more achievements than everybody else because you're going to feel like I'm not enough because I don't have the car. I'm not enough because I promise y'all right now, like, I don't get me wrong, I don't want to live in an unsafe neighborhood. I don't want to drive a car that's unlivable, I mean, undrivable and stuff like that. But at the same time, too, I know that I'm so different that no matter where I live, no matter how much money I'm making, I know that I still can get my dream without any achievements. I know no matter how far I might get pushed back in life and things may happen in life, I always can keep going. I always can still get to my goals because I know what makes me different and I know that I'm worthy enough to do that thing. And I also know there's nothing that somebody can do, an achievement somebody can get that can make them better than me. Like you have to understand that about yourself. But I think for me personally, being able to do that was finding what makes me different. And that takes a lot of failing at things and trying again. That takes a lot of opening up the sides of yourself that you possibly were ashamed about and you weren't able to express or people didn't really like, and just understanding that's me and you gonna take it or leave it. This is who I am. But that's another thing too I really want you to figure out. Find your self-worth outside of achievement. Achievements are good, but you still have to feel worthy enough. You still have to love yourself and figure out how to love yourself. Living in a bad neighborhood, having a car that don't really run, working a job that don't really pay that much, but still having that fire inside of you like, listen, this ain't going to be life forever. I'm still worthy enough. I don't care what kind of clothes I wear. I don't care what kind of car I drive. I'm still worthy. And I don't have to have a certain achievement, have a certain accolade for people to forget what people think, for me to think I'm worthy enough to be in these places, in these spaces as individuals that do have those achievements or have these certain accolades or have these certain things that I don't have yet. Okay, because you're going to get them. We just ain't get them yet. And the final one is creating a why that is stronger than your fear and is not necessarily always goal based. This is because there's going to be points in your life where you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to be like, why am I going to the gym? Why am I, writing this business plan? Why am I looking up this video? Why am I going back to school? And you have to have something that's stronger than a specific goal. Don't get me wrong, it's good to have goals in life, but like I said, and this is also going back to the first thing I talked about in this video, the maintaining, right? Because sometimes once you already achieve the goal, the why is not the same. Because you can't say it's for my birthday. The birthday passed. You can't say it's for the summertime. We in winter. Summertime already passed. So you have to have a why. And so you have to figure out what's the point. Because your brain is going to say, what's the point of us even doing this? What's the point of us even doing that? You have to figure out your reasoning. And a lot of times that comes, in my personal opinion, with self-worth, but figuring out your definition of what's the point, because your brain is going to have fear. Your brain is going to tell you, I don't think we should do this thing. I don't think we're tired. We probably shouldn't go to the gym. Let's get some more sleep. We had a long day at work. We don't need to look up the videos on how to start that business. Let's just watch some Netflix, or let's just, call it a day. Your brain is going to tell you, what's the point? And you have to have something that's consistent. You can't have something that's dependent on a certain time of the year all the time. You can't have something that's focused on always a certain point of your life. You're going to have to figure out your what's the point. And a lot of time the root of it is you, because I deserve it. And I'm not telling you to fake this. If you don't feel it yet, I definitely recommend working on your self-worth. But that's what I had to realize with a lot of journeys in my life. I couldn't be so dependent on achieving a certain goal. Oh, because we want to make money. Oh, because we want to. No, because you deserve to have this life, because you're worthy enough to do this thing. Like I don't, so many people are always focused on feeling worthy enough to get the accomplishment, right? I'm worthy enough to get the money. I'm worthy enough. No, because I'm worthy enough to get up and walk to the gym. Like I had to realize I'm worthy enough to perform the action, not just receive the accolades, not just receive the achievements or the rewards, because that comes regardless. If you do what you're supposed to do, that's going to come regardless. I'm worthy enough. I deserve. I deserve to be able to get up and go to the gym. I deserve to be able to introduce more knowledge into my life. I deserve all this simply because I was born, not because of where I'm from, not because of what I know previously, not because of my parents, not because of my career, simply because I was born. And I know, being someone that has previously not experienced that, I know sometimes that can be hard to understand or hard to even fathom, but that's how much self-worth you have to have in yourself. I deserve this because I'm here. There's nothing I have to achieve. There's nothing I have to do. I deserve to perform these actions. Me, every aspect of me, not just the happy me, not just the excited me, the tired me, the frustrated me. She deserves it just as much as every other piece of myself. And that kind of goes back to your shadow self deserves just as much as your conscious self. Because I also want you to understand, even when you aren't, and even when you weren't doing the right things, right? You might have been doing things you weren't supposed to do. You might have been around people you wasn't supposed to be around, doing things that you know were pushing your life back. You still deserved it then. And you still deserve it now. And the future, you still deserve it. Every aspect of you deserves it. Like, that's one thing I had to understand. Even when I wasn't doing the things that I know I should have been doing, it was for the plot. But that person deserved it. She just didn't have the knowledge. She just didn't know. She didn't have the self-worth that she could be more and she could do more. But she deserved that as well. And until you understand that every piece of you, no matter what you did, no matter what you possibly said, no matter where you come from, that part of you deserved it just as much as the current you deserves it, and just as much as the future you deserves it. Don't always think, well, the future me deserves it because she's going to make money, because she's going to have the body. No, every aspect of you deserves it, even when you're not doing the things that are getting you towards that goal. Don't feel like, well, I don't deserve this thing because I'm not eating right. I don't deserve this thing because I'm not looking up the videos. I don't deserve this thing because you deserve it. The only difference is you performing the actions. Every aspect of you, every point of your life, you deserve it. But you just have to ask yourself, are you going to perform the actions that's going to help you get to those goals? It's not a matter of you. I don't want to keep saying the same words. I keep saying deserving it, because you do, but you have to feel that in your heart. You have to truly know. The only difference between me getting a goal and me not getting a goal is me doing the actions, is me stop self-sabotaging. It's not a matter of me deserving it or not, because I've always deserved it, even when I didn't feel it, even when I didn't know it. But now I know better, so I got to do better. Now, thank y'all so much for watching my video. I hope that you guys really liked it. I hope that you guys really enjoyed it. Go below and sign up for my newsletter. And every other Wednesday, I will be having a live. If you've missed my last two lives, I do have them available on my page. And this is where you guys email me advice. If you have any personal things that you will want me to help you with specifically, I keep everything anonymous. You can email me with that. I have an advice email below, and that is what I will talk about on live. And that is just me giving my honest opinion on things. Not always psychology and, case studies, but it's just us really talking. So you can do that as well. My next live will be July 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. I will create a video for that pretty soon, so you guys can pre-register for it so you're notified when I do go live, but it will be every other Wednesday, like I said, at 7:30 p.m. And if you do miss it, of course, I will upload them after so you guys can see it. But if you're actually in the live, I can also answer questions too. So even if you did email me something, you can, this video, hopefully the person who asked for it sees it. Someone in the video asked me about a self-sabotage video, and I was like, you know what? I got a little bit to say about it, but I want to do some more research. So I definitely hope that this video helped you. And comment below any more topics that you guys would like me to talk about, anything that you're going through and you possibly need help with. And also comment below, what is one thing in your shadow that you feel like you're hiding? If you feel like I already feel like I know it, I possibly feel like there's this thing that I like doing or I used to do that I don't do no more because people shame me for it, comment that below as well. And of course, go below to follow my TikTok, like, comment, and subscribe, and sign up for my newsletter. Thank you guys so much, and I hope that you have a great one. Don't forget to come back for new videos every Sunday and every Wednesday. Thank y'all.